I get really excited about hearing just men sing. It's a little different, right? It's a little different because men are different than women. That needs to be said today. God created men to lead, to sing, and something we say at Abide often is win the morning, win the day. And I'm just excited that this morning we, as a group of men, won the morning. Just coming here together, sacrificing a little bit of sleep, for some of you, a lot of sleep, we have won the morning, and we are literally piercing the power of darkness and going against the enemy by lifting our voices to him. First, welcome to the first 0600 Men's Rally. Really glad to see you guys all here. And I want to start by just saying, what is the purpose of why we're here? So I don't have a clicker. Wilson, you're going to have to kind of look ahead with the slides. But I want to be clear what the purpose of this morning is. And the first thing is that the purpose of this morning is to get men excited about being men. Being a man is a good thing. And this idea of manhood, of masculinity, is under distinct and strategic attack by our culture, and I believe by principalities and powers and enemies. And it's okay to be a man. It's okay to be manly. It's okay to be excited about being a man and live into the calling that God has for men. So that's the first purpose of why we're here this morning. The second purpose is to get men excited about following the ultimate man. If you want to know what perfect manhood is, you will look to Jesus. He was all-powerful, King of Kings, and humbled himself to serve others. This is fundamentally and supremely what being a man is. And so as men, we want to get excited about following the ultimate man. The third reason that we're here this morning, and I hope and pray that this will become a routine for us, is to equip men with biblical tools to become better men. So our three reasons: we want to get men excited about being men, we want to get men excited about following the ultimate man, and we want to equip men with biblical tools to become better men. So I've got some content and some other things I want to share, but before I get into any of that, I kind of wanted to start with a little bit of backstory, a little bit of my story. I know, my own father is in here, my own son is in here. A lot of you go to my church, and you all know me to different varying degrees. But I wanted to share a little bit of my own personal history and what has brought me to this moment, and why I'm excited, and particularly excited about this group of guys that have showed up this morning. So when I was at college, I met Christine. We were at CBC, and early on in our dating, she asked me, "Are you going to be a pastor?" And I told her, "No, I have no interest in being a pastor." And she said, "That's fine." I think even when I was 17, she didn't believe me about that. And sure enough, in Denver, 2009, we were married by that time. We got married in 2008, so we moved to Denver so I could finish graduate school in 2009. And that was the first time that I started feeling the call on my life to be a pastor and a church planter. I was under the influence of some popular Bible teachers at the time that were really excited about church planting, and I really had some people mentor me, even in Denver at the church I was at, that really showed me a picture of what it meant to be in a church, to follow good leadership, and to be faithful in that way. And so in my 20s, I was full of energy, was full of vision, led lots of small groups, did lots of different things, built different things, was part of a church plant for a while. Not that I was a lead in, but that what I was a part of. And I'll say this, in my 20s, I think there was a lot of arrogance, a lot of thinking that if I was in charge, I could do it better than the people that were in charge. And I'll just say right now, for those of you that aren't pastors, I know some of you are pastors out there, it is hard work being a pastor, and it's a lot more complicated than you think. And when I became a pastor, then, about when I was 30, it felt like a boxing match, is the best way to describe it. Getting into ministry, it's one thing to be part of a ministry, but then to be the leader of it, it was hard. It was really hard. And, you have people leaving the church, not always on good terms. You have people saying hard things. You have people bringing criticism. You have plans that you set, and then things don't go the way that you think they're going to go. And really what I've explained to other people when I'm in my most vulnerable state is I developed, again, through my early 30s, what I would call a glass jaw. Have any of you heard of a glass jaw? Glass jaw is a boxing term that when you box a lot and you get punched, you end up getting concussions. It's just part of boxing, I hear, right? And so the more you get a concussion, the easier you get concussions. And so what ends up happening, even to really good boxers, is that they get so many concussions that they can't really stay in the ring very long because they're so weakened from all the concussions that every time they get hit, they get a concussion and go down, right? And this is how I described myself to the people that are closest to me in my ministry. There was another good friend, mentor of mine, that described me as a tired soul, And I would say most certainly that's defined my early 30s. But I'm going to be turning 35 in September, and so I'm officially entering my late 30s, and I'm praying that tired soul will no longer be the defining mark for me. Praying that God would grant me that faith to get up off the mat, to engage the enemy, to fight with perseverance and grit, to train my body to fight back against all the adversaries, to walk by faith, to walk humbly, to take on more leadership, more responsibility, and to show my son what it means to be a man and a warrior for the army of King Jesus. It was a year ago, Father's Day, so just about a year ago, that I went to a conference called the Stronger Man Conference. Several of you went to the conference this year. I got this shirt there, Stronger Man Nation is what they call it. Their slogan is "Kill the Dragon, Win the Girl." And they've got some cool stuff going on, some really cool stuff going on over there. And so this conference was held at Grace City Church. Grace City Church is a church in Wenatchee that was actually planted at the same time as another church in the Tri-Cities that was planted, and I was a part of that church, and so these two churches actually grew up together, and they were both part of the Acts 29 network. And so I've known the pastor at this church for a lot of years, 15 years, and his cousin then moved to the Tri-Cities, Eric Chase. I think I have a picture of Eric Chase on the screen. That's Eric Chase all the way to the left. His cousin moved to the Tri-Cities and became part of the church that I was involved in, and really became my best friend and one of my closest mentors. And he moved away probably about 5 years ago, right before we planted Abide. So we took a trip, my wife and I, with the Chases. My wife is good friends with Helen. I'm good friends with Eric. We have sons similar ages. We took a trip, and we were sitting in a hot tub. He had some other friends from Wenatchee there that have just been a real encouragement to me. But we were sitting in the hot tub, and I just started feeling the weight of my glass jaw. I started feeling the weight of being behind, of feeling tired, of being a tired soul, and really feeling like the Lord was saying, it's time to get your stuff together. And this weight and this sense was on me so strong, but I still felt so alone. It's something that leadership is so hard because it's so lonely. It can be so lonely. So we're sitting in the hot tub, and I'm starting to get this sense, and I really start where the story takes a turn and the urgency takes a new level is when I start thinking about my boy, Levin. So Levin is 12 years old, and I really have 6 years left with him. Maybe 4 good years left with him, and then 2 where he's going to be figuring out and testing the waters. And that time goes by so fast. And this put a new sense of urgency on me, a new sense of I need to get my house in order, and I need to show Levin what it means to be a godly man who is on mission, who is on fire, who is fighting the enemy. And I need to raise him up to be a man of character and integrity that will do the same thing. And so this sense of urgency was not only on myself then, but also kind of turned towards my son. I realized I don't believe that I was being the father I should be. I wasn't being the husband I should be to my wife. There was a lot of stepping up, really, that needed to be done. At the conference, they talked a lot about the importance of a tribe, right? All throughout history, men have lived together in tribes, right? This has been the natural order. Men get together with other men, and they do men stuff, right? And always men have had boys, like my son Levin, and I'm glad there's a lot of other sons here. And there's always a time in a boy's life where he transfers from boyhood to manhood. And he knows, I'm no longer a boy in this tribe, I'm a member of the tribe. And this is an important period in a boy's life that happens somewhere between 12 years old and 18 years old, right? And so at this conference, they're talking a lot about the ideas of rites of passage. How many have heard of a rite of passage before, right? It's a common thing that transcends lots of different cultures and times. They gave the example of the rites of passage of the Spartans, which was a very intense rite of passage and a very intense group of men, right? But when you hit the rite of passage time with them, they would kick the son out of the household into the wilderness, and they were not allowed to come back for an entire year. And when they did come back, they were to come back with the balls of 2 of his father's servants. And the whole time they were doing this, the rest of the Spartans were out trying to hunt him and kill him. And you either made it and you were a Spartan, or you got killed by the other Spartans and you were out. This was a not godly version of a rite of passage. But nevertheless, it shows this image, right, of going through a testing period and then coming out the other side in the tribe. Because God wired all of us to be affirmed in our love and to be given an identity as sons, to be given an identity as being in the tribe. And we desire this first from our fathers, right? And when we don't get this from our fathers, it creates what's often called a father wound, right? Where there's a hurt because we're not getting this love and affirmation from our fathers that shows us that we belong in the tribe. And so this can happen with you in your teen years. It can happen with you in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. There's no limit to this. And this is the beauty of the gospel, because God offers and promises to be our Father and to heal that father wound by saying, you are loved, you are affirmed, you are part of the family. So this all happened about a year ago, and it really got me thinking about men's ministry, what I want to see for my son, and it really got me to the point where almost thinking, my top priority, really, I love my church, I love my wife, but in a lot of ways, my highest priority is what is the next 6 years is that I have with my son, because I'm going to have this church for a long time. I'm going to have my wife for a long time, but I'm going to have a very short time with my son. And if I don't do something with him specifically at this time, there's going to be an enormous amount of regret. You have some of you don't have sons yet, some of you don't have wives yet, some of you have sons my age, Marlo there, And we're a little bit behind the 8 ball. We've got some work to do. And this compels me to want to build the tribe, okay? And that's really what this is about, is bringing together men that share this vision of saying masculinity is good, doing stuff that men are called to is good, and raising up the next generation of sons and boys is a good thing. And we need to engage in that together, and we need to create a tribe. This was also, if I can just be completely honest, a full-scale assault on the traditional youth group model, okay? It's fine if you want to do youth group, but I want to see something better. I don't want to see my son go with a bunch of other young people to get led by somebody that's slightly older. I want to see fathers and men gather around younger men and teach them what it means to have character, to have integrity, to be a protector, to be a provider, and to engage the enemy, and to enter a place of maturity as quickly as possible, where you're taking on more and more responsibility for the purpose of serving and giving to others rather than yourself. Because everything in our culture today says, take care of number one. You got to live, don't waste your 20s. How many of you don't waste your 20s? This is a lie straight from the pit of hell. If you think that living a single life, living selfishly, doing all the things that you shouldn't be doing in your 20s so that you can settle down in your 30s, this is wrong. And I'm not saying my son will get married when he's 18, but I want him to have all the character and all the integrity and all the skills that he would be ready to take the responsibility of a wife and kids by the time he's 18. And so this is what this is. This is creating the group. And to me, there was a parallel here because I lead a church that has a lot of young men in it also, right? I lead a church that has a lot of young men, and some of the young men in this church are also behind and need to step up into a place of responsibility and maturity and taking responsibility for others. And so this is a parallel ministry. This is not a ministry for sons exclusively. It's not a ministry for men exclusively. This is a ministry for all men who want to receive the love and affirmation of their Heavenly Father and grow into what it means to be a mature man. I did want to invite Levin up for just a minute. He didn't know about this. But this is a challenge coin. A challenge coin is something you give somebody when they've accomplished something, right? And this may be something that we can incorporate into this group, maybe for the younger guys, maybe for all the guys, I don't know. I think it's a pretty cool thing. And most of the time, they're given after something has been accomplished. Some hardship has gone through, some trial has been overcome, some skill has been learned. But the gospel and the redeemed rite of passage is more than that, because it starts with the receiving and accepting of that sonship. And so this was the challenge coin from the 2022 conference, and that conference was called Forged. And the slogan of the conference, if you will, was that boys are born, men are forged. And I think that's really a powerful sentiment. And so I'm just going to give it to you publicly, Levin, to say, not because you've earned it, but because I love you. And this is my commitment to do this together with you and to figure this out with this tribe. And this is not an earned coin, this is an affirmation coin. So that's from the conference. With that first conference, you can take a seat. It was just me and Levin. We kind of figured that one out together. And then I said, man, I am really sad we didn't bring more people. And so I brought a bunch of you guys this year. And now I'm really sad I didn't bring more of you. So next year, I hope we can all go to this conference because they really do a knock-up job. Culture is under attack. Manhood is under attack. We have an epidemic of boys staying boys way too long. And I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 young boys, young men in this room. And we have a responsibility as fathers and then as the tribe around them to make sure that these 7 boys don't stay boys forever. This is an epidemic in our culture. The group in Wenatchee, they have a saying, kind of their underlying slogan of the whole ministry is that when men get stronger, everything gets better. When men get stronger, everything gets better. If there's going to be one place as a pastor where we want to focus in and make an impact, it's going to be in the men. Because if the men get their stuff together, their marriages come together, the kids come together, the church comes together, society is changed, workplaces are changed. When the men get stronger, everything gets better. And so in a lot of ways, this is the thrust of the ministry of Abide, not because we don't care about the women and the children, but because we do believe, we share the sentiment with Grace City Church, that when men get stronger, everything gets better. And that's the goal here. So, we're going to go ahead and play a short video. Before we do that, the quick preface is this video it's a poem written by Josh McPherson, who's the pastor at Grace City Church. There's some B-roll that's obviously stock, and then there's baptisms and pictures of Wenatchee and stuff like that. And I just wanted to say that because these are a lot of them. Like I said, there's also pictures of Spartans and other things. That part's not real, but this is real people in a real place. This was written by that pastor, and it's going to kind of lay the framework for what we're going to talk about then the rest of the morning, and kind of lay the framework for how we're going to approach being men, okay? So this is, I think, a video that's going to really bless you.
Eyes search desperate for valor and grit, as cities burn and justice fails, as tyranny rises and corruption sails, unhindered ahead as if to say, here we are and here we stay, to pervert and steal a generation away into the abyss. And all seems hopeless, all seems lost. Is there no one who would count the cost and find it worthy to stand and fight, to push against the awful night of darkness that is pressing in around family, children? And again, one asks, is there no hope, no wall that would stay the rise of evil threatening to drown us all? Take heart, dear one, do not dread. Honor and valor are not dead, but be true in the chest of the few we call the stronger men. Who is this man, you ask with trepidation, who dares to stand his post, his station amidst the war that rages against our children of the coming generation? I will tell you without reservation, he is the solution to all the wrong. He is the stronger man. Here stands the soldier, strong and brave, with a violent storm of fury saved, for evil alone, if it be so foolish to act out on his watch. He's the kind of man who answers the bell, who does not flinch in the face of help, but stands his ground when wolves draw nigh, and warns them once, with no delight, that if they should choose to pick a fight, he'll finish it with strength and might that thunders down upon their head in sudden, shocking savagery. A tender, gentle man was he, until they picked a fight. And when they did, they woke a beast, who battled for the weak and least of these, and used his cunning warrior skills to make battle on the evil shills who threatened, on his watch, the existence of good and peace. Here stands the athlete. With sweat and strain, he wills his body to do again what no mere mortal could appear to do. He digs down deep and finds anew the drive to compete, the will to win, to push through pain and strain to claim the prize, the crown, the end to which he races, drawing strength from all the familiar faces who line the way to his finish line, towards which he pushes on. Here stands the farmer, against the weather, against the odds, with a tether to the sod that bites back with the curse. He tills the soil faithfully and waters each and every tree and plans for spring, but in the end, the harvest is the Lord's to tend. He does his part, then rests his heart. The master is the one who starts and finishes the whole affair. The farmer is just sort of there, to watch God work and grow and bring fruit into reality. and with eyes fixed on future joys, he works hard growing men from boys. He lives for a harvest from different fields. His prayer is for eternal crops to yield a harvest of souls. Here stands the Son, who's been set free by a Father's love and liberty. His sins forgiven and identity secure. By grace he's been made strong, and by grace he will endure. He takes his seat at the family banquet table. His confidence is restored. His heart is able to give and receive with laughter and joy, the desire of every man, the longing of every boy. Affirmation, love, honor, respect. There is no gaping father wound here. He's a son who knows he's loved. Now, lest you think we speak of 4 different men here in this lore, of soldier, farmer, athlete, son, this is not 4 different men, but one. Here stands the stronger man. He knows well his duties, he is not clueless. He trains hard, he is not helpless. He does his job, he is not powerless. He stands for principle, he is not cowardice. He is the image of God in action. He is force for good personified, the kind of man who turns the tide of evil on its head. Here stands the stronger man. To protect and defend is his chosen path, no matter the cost, no matter the wrath that might come at him with odious intent. He'll die with energy and lifeblood spent before he gives an inch of ground to evil. Who is a stronger man, you say? And how is it he'll win the day back from the brink of insanity where wrong is right and liberty is trampled under tyranny and night grows darker still? I'll tell you who he is indeed. Find a mirror, look, see. This stronger man is you, is me, if only we would rise and be men. Into the breach we plunge headlong when evil mounts its attack. This fortified city is ours to defend. We flinch not, fighting back. Hating not what wars against us, but rather loving who we defend. For king, for country, for women and children, we will battle and contend. Take heart, hope rings, all is not lost. There rises an army of stronger men. For honor and virtue, peace and justice, for good in all the land, there comes a warrior of special breed. Here stands the stronger man.
What do you guys think of that? That gets me fired up. It gets me inspired to want to do more, to be more for my son, to really fight to raise up the next generation of men and any man that is in this generation that's behind. Because as a culture, we are behind. As a church, we are behind. So the goal of this entire group is this. Now, this goal, this mission lives under the mission of the church, which is to go tell people about Jesus and make disciples. And you take any church that's got it figured out, and they're going to do those things because that's the mission that God has given the church. Underneath that mission, there's another group, and that's this group, and we have a more specific goal that feeds up to the bigger mission of reaching people for the kingdom. Our goal is to reclaim a biblical vision of masculinity built around 4 identities. Okay, now first I'm going to say, all these 4 identities were created by Josh, taken from biblical principles. These are not the only 4 identities that you could describe a man with. There's lots of ways you could describe a man. There's lots of ways you could grow in manhood. Josh has done a really good job of laying it out. There's a lot of resources that we're going to be able to tap into. I'm going to explain this paradigm this morning, and this is the one we're going to run with until the Lord gives us something different or better. So we want to reclaim a biblical version of masculinity built around 4 identities: soldier, farmer, athlete, son. You saw it in the video. The soldier is the protector. The farmer is the provider. The athlete is the leader. The son is the lover. These 4 identities get taken from 2 Timothy 2, verse 1 through 7. And I'm going to go ahead and read that. It's going to be on the screen as well. You then, my son, starts with the sonship. Be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus. And the things you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable men. This passage is about men who will also be qualified to teach others. This should multiply itself out. Men are men, and they teach other men how to be men. Endure hardship with us like a good soldier of Christ Jesus. No one serving as a soldier gets involved in civilian affairs. He wants to please his commanding officer. Similarly, if anyone competes as an athlete, he does not receive the victor's crown unless he competes according to the rules. The hardworking farmer should be first to receive a share of crops. Reflect on what I am saying, for the Lord will give you insight to all this. I love that last phrase because it says, think, and God will give insight. And this is the role of the man, to engage with our mind and then trust the Lord. To take an advancement and then trust the commander-in-chief. Going through the identities, starting with soldier, this is the protector. To endure hardship with us like a good soldier of Christ Jesus. No one serving as a soldier gets involved in civilian affairs. What does it mean to be a good soldier? To endure hardship with grit and determination. To stay ruthlessly and completely mission-focused. And to serve at the pleasure of your commanding officer, which is none other than King Jesus. We are all fighting for somebody. We either fight for God or we fight for the enemy. There's only two teams. There's only two nations. You fight for God or you fight for the enemy. As men, as children of God, we're called to fight for God. We're called to be soldiers of God. Paul was not sparse with his use of war imagery when it comes to what we are called to do as Christians. Innately in the call of a man is to be a protector. We are the stronger of the two genders, and we have the fortitude to stand up against evil more than our wives, the women in our life, and our children. And it is our responsibility to do it. It's not a personality thing. It's not an ability thing. It's our responsibility to be a soldier, to stand and to fight. And we can look at these roles in lots of different ways. We are to be the protector of others spiritually. We are to be the protector of others physically. It is our responsibility to be as strong as we can be so that should we face evil, we can stand and fight. This image was given to me and it's really stuck with me extremely in my mind. But I can imagine walking across a bridge or being in the ocean. We're going, like to go to the beach and seeing somebody being taken out to the riptide and you not having the strength to go and save them. Or maybe you're crossing that bridge and your child falls in and you jump in to swim after them, but you're not strong enough. But you could have been. And had you trained, had you fought, had you had a little bit of grit and had a little bit of discipline, that would be hard to live with. Because there's an innate and God-given responsibility in men to be protectors. And I'm not saying everybody needs to be the toughest guy. I'm saying you need to be as strong as you are able to be so that when you face the challenges that are put before you, you have no regrets that you weren't stronger. We can be the protector spiritually. We can be protectors of our family spiritually. We can be protectors of our friends' spiritual well-being. We can be protectors in our workplaces. We can be emotional protectors, protecting the weak, protecting the innocent, protecting women from the emotional abuse of other men, from the emotional abuse of our own selves in pursuing ungodly relationships. The protector role, God-given, goes so beyond just physical. It's the everything, but it's God-given, and it's part of our role, and we need to step up into the gap because, again, everything about what it means to be a man biblically, the culture says the opposite. Women are just as strong. Women have the responsibility. It's sexist if the man, I mean, we would be completely publicly shamed if this was just broadly broadcast. Because they would say, why are you saying that about men? Women can do just the same. It's not their responsibility. And we shirk our responsibility when we give this responsibility to women, to children, to put on their backs what was intended to be on our backs. The athlete, the leader, men are called to lead. Similarly, if anyone competes as an athlete, he does not receive the victor's crown unless he competes according to the rules. Paul didn't just talk about soldiers in war, he actually talked about athletes. And this isn't the only place in Scripture that he talks about athletes. Look at 1 Corinthians 9, 24 through 27. Do you not know that in a race, all the runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. This is where he draws the analogy. We're not literally all called to be athletes here. We're called to take the principles of what it means to be an athlete and apply it to the imperishable wreath. This is ultimately the winning of souls for the cause of Christ. If you look at this passage, that's what this is talking about. So I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air, but I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. I was actually reading this a few weeks ago on my own and looked up the word beating my body because that was just a curious phrase to me. Does anybody know what that literally means? It means to give a black eye. That's literally what the Greek word means, to blacken one's eye. To beat your body, to blacken your eye, to fight, to bring your body under submission so that you wouldn't disqualify the message of the gospel. That's what Paul is saying here. And some of us are way too indulgent in the flesh. Pornography, alcohol, overeating, video games. The list could go on and on and on. And we as men need to blacken our eye and beat our body so that we don't become disqualified in delivering the message that God has given us as the church. Athlete, leader, other-focused, leader-focused. We need to be leaders of self so we can be leaders of others, so we can be leaders of organizations, so that we can be leaders of movements. We're all athletes on Team Jesus. Jesus is the coach and the star player, but we do have a job on the team. We're not sideliner Christians. We shouldn't be. We should be on the field, playing, fighting, going. For sake of time, I'm going to keep going. Farmer. The hardworking farmer should be first to receive a share of the crops. Here's the big idea. God made every man a farmer with a field to work and a harvest to bring. Genesis 1, 26 through 28. I'm not going to read it for sake of time, but you all know it. God created man in his own image, and then he gave him a charge. Go and subdue. Fill and subdue. God gave identity. I created you in my image. Then he gave a job. Go and work. Go and do. Culture goes against every single one of these identities. The big thing that you young men, are going to be told is that you need to find a career that fulfills you. You need to find something that makes you happy. If you really want a long and successful career, you need to do something that you love. This is the selfish perversion of the duty given to man to fill and subdue the earth. I'm not saying you can't like your job. It's a blessing to be able to find joy in the work that you have, but that's not the point. The point of your work is not you, it's the service of others. Lover, son, you then, my child, be strengthened by the grace that is in Christ Jesus. That's the ESV version. The NIV version uses my son. We are all lovers. We're created to be lovers. We're created to love others. We're created to love God, but we're also created to receive love. We're created to hear the affirmation of our earthly father, and sometimes we miss that. But that is the good news of the gospel. We talked about this already, that God can fill the gap and he can heal those father wounds because he does give you the affirmation that you so deeply desire as a son, and he gives you the love unconditionally and then sends you on mission. If you look in Luke 3, and again, we're just running short on time, so I'm having to go through a lot of this faster than I was hoping. But if you look in Luke 23, you see the Father affirming Jesus, the Son, and saying, "You are my Son, whom I love." Here's the love. "With you I am well pleased." This was the start of Jesus' ministry before Jesus had done any of his work. This is the type of love and affirmation that we get to receive from the Father. There's a lot of versions of broken masculinity, and probably the biggest cause of these broken versions of masculinity is the lack of love and affirmation that comes from a father. And the lack of love and affirmation that then, as you're filled up, goes out to the world. Because if you have all the strength, you have all the protector qualities, and you have all the word that some people at Abide have been using is grunt. You have all the grunt, but you don't have the love, you have nothing. You have nothing. You have a ruined, broken version of masculinity. So we've got 10 minutes, and I want to take the last couple minutes here and talk about the plan. What I want to do, I hope you have at least a little bit of a taste of why I want to be here and why I want to do this, for the sake of our sons, for the sake of our church, for the sake of men, and I think men are hungry for this. I want to do the 0600 Men's Rally, second Wednesday of every month, this being the first one. These will include a couple of songs, somebody, not me, next month, giving a story of God's faithfulness in their life, and then a small amount of teaching to equip us in something. And these teachings are going to follow these four roles. So we're going to take the next quarter and really dive into what it means to be a soldier. That'll be the theme of the quarter. And then the next quarter, we'll take athlete and really dive into the theme of what it means to be an athlete, right? And so we'll do this in cycles, and we'll just meet once a month, second Wednesday of every month, 6 a.m., most likely here. The next thing I want to do is I want to have units, the small accountability groups. These are totally optional. If you want more, if you want to get more connected and have a group of guys that you can text, that you can, hang out with, sign up for a unit. I've got a sign-up sheet here. We're gonna have some units that are really geared more for father-son and fathers and sons, and then more units that would be geared elseways. You can if you're interested in being in a unit, you put your name, and then there's a moment of self-reflection here, okay? I have leader, peer, follower. You need to self-reflect and say, am I the kind of guy that's ready? Because all of you will eventually be ready. But am I the kind of guy right now that can lead a group that I would say I could take responsibility for others because I take responsibility for myself, and I could lead a group of men? Or am I the kind of guy that could be a peer, could be a strong peer in a group, but not necessarily a leader? Or am I the kind of guy that is just where I'm at right now, I need to follow? And that's okay. There's no shame in that. But you need to write your name if you want to be part of this, and then identify where you're at so we can group you better. And then I put some times that you may want to meet. If you could just circle what's best for you or a couple that are best for you. I'll try and help facilitate groups getting together, but I'm not going to domineer over this process. This is something that men are going to have to engage in on their own. We have actually, in the church in Wenatchee, one of the other pastors, Adam James, has written 4 books on these 4 identities, and they're 8-week studies that explain the identities. They have reflection questions. You should grab a journal, write answers to these questions in your journal, and use those in your groups. Okay, like I said, with the sons, and I hope all the dads with sons here, we can form a group and we can really dive into this and work through this content with our sons at an age-appropriate level. But that's what the units are going to be. Does that make sense? So if that's something you're interested in, at least put your name down so I know you're interested. Maybe mark the other things so I know where you're at. I'm going to help facilitate that, but I'm not going to control it. Okay? We've controlled too many things in the past at our church. This is not something we're going to control. This is something we're going to facilitate and encourage men to be a part of. We're going to equip you with resources, and then it's going to go on its own. Goal setting is a big part of the culture, and I wish I had more time to show you how the men in Wenatchee have been intentional with their sons in setting goals that are age appropriate for these identities, right? So they'll take a quarter. If we take soldier first, they'll take soldier and they'll come up with, hey, what are some questions I want to ask my son this quarter? And there's like 15 questions on my Eric Chase, my good friend, sent me his. I can share that around if you guys want to see it, but it's like, here's 15 questions just throughout the quarter that I want to talk to my son about. Here's 3 movies I want to watch with my boy. Here's what it means to be a protector in the context of his family. Here's what it means to be a protector in the context of his church. Here's some practical skills I want him to learn as a protector, right? And just make some goals, and they're age appropriate for that season, and they work on it all quarter, and then the next quarter they switch to something else, and they set new goals and ask new questions, right? This doesn't have to just be for the young boys. I think all of us should be setting goals. You don't have to if you don't want to, but if you want to, start writing those goals down. And this Saturday at 9 a.m. at my house, we'll have a breakfast. I'll cook breakfast on the Blackstone, and we'll all share our goals and what we're thinking. And I'm going to be like, oh, Mike, that's a good idea. I'm going to take that one and write it on mine. And Mike will be like, oh, Levin, that's a great idea. I'm going to take that one and write it on mine. And we'll so everybody come with some ideas and some goals and some thoughts of what you want to accomplish this quarter in the realm of soldier. We'll swap ideas, we'll share ideas, we'll get them concrete, and then we'll use the units as well as this time to solidify those goals and be excited together and grow as men. Does this make sense? 0600 units, goal-setting breakfast this Saturday, 9 a.m. in my house. If you want to help with breakfast, that would be great. Just throwing some events on there, because the last thing I want to do is start doing stuff together. Not every day, not even every week, but I've got 3 things up there just to get the juices flowing. I want to watch American Sniper. I just thought that was a really powerful movie. Some virtue, some vice, right? Not everything is all good. But let's watch it early enough that then afterwards we can have a conversation and say, what was good? What was not good? What was honoring to the Lord? What was not honoring to the Lord, right? And have that conversation and just talk about what it means to be a protector. On 8/5, I want to do a Badger hike and pray. I just want to hike Badger early enough, then pray. Spend some time praying up there. I think that'd be a fun thing to do. 8/26, I think that's a Saturday. I think it'd be fun to do a range day, just in the spirit of being a protector. We've got lots of ARs, handguns, all sorts of stuff. If you come out without a gun, bring a little bit of cash to help with ammo. It'll be a good time. The other thing that we're going to do as a group, every month we're going to have a challenge just to kind of unify some cause. You can go to the next slide that shows the challenge. It's pretty simple. This month's challenge, July challenge, read your Bible. 1 chapter a day. This is something that we will continue to grow in our challenges, but if we don't get this right, if we're not tapped into the source of truth and the God who has spoken to the church, we're fools and we will not make it off the ground. We have to read our Bible. Does this make sense? This is non-negotiable. It's the starting point for everything that we're going to do. I want everybody also to memorize one passage. Now, your passage could be Psalm 51, the whole thing. It's 19 verses. Or it could be one verse. Or it could be something that you memorized as a kid and you want to take it easy on yourself. But I want everybody to come here next month with something written on their heart that they could recite perfectly. Can we do that? One thing, one passage, one verse or one passage. Then here's where it gets more challenging, in my opinion. Read the Bible to your kids, read the Bible to your wife, and I'm going to make this bar extremely low. One verse a day. And if you don't have a wife and kids, I've got to read to a friend or family member one verse a day. Be selective about that verse. Don't go to your wife and be like, go to the ant, oh sluggard. That's not a good verse for that context. But pick a verse and, be thoughtful about it. Pray about it and say, I'm going to read one verse to my kids before they go to bed. I want to leave them with one thought from the Word of God in their mind before they go to bed. Pick a verse, read it to them. Pick a verse, say, babe, I thought about it. This is the one verse that I want to read to you today. The bar is low. The time commitment is low. It's just a matter of whether you're going to do it. And why are we focusing on the Bible? This is the last thing. I've got 1 minute. Why are we focusing on the Bible for our challenge this month? Ephesians 6. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God that you may be able to withstand the evil day. And having done all, to stand firm, stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and the shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish the flaming darts of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying at all times in the Spirit with all prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert with all perseverance, making supplications for the saints. And on your challenge card, you can see it says, wield your sword. We're going to start learning to use the one offensive weapon that we've been given. Because if we're truly going to be soldiers for the army of God, we better know how to use the sword. Right? That's all I've got. 7 a.m. You guys are dismissed, but I'm going to hang around for at least 30 minutes if you want to chat. Grab a donut, grab coffee on your way out.